morning, everyone. I hope everyone is having a decent morning, or at the very least, I should say, have had a decent night's sleep. I did not have a decent night's sleep. I've been up doing this all night, so there's that. But that said, let's do the news. There's news afoot, so I want to do the news. So back in 2016, a bruised and battered, broken Bernie Sanders was dragged and hung on the rafters during the Democratic convention. Now, during this time, rabid Hillary voters, swaths of them, threw eggs and coconuts and other exotic fruits at his body as it laid up there, broken. And Sanders, looking up slightly, uttered the words, "Forgive them, vote Hillary," to a godless universe that nobody was listening. That said, the rabid Hillary voters laughed as Sanders supporters cried. I mean, after all, taping their mouths, using sound machines to shut people up. It was a brutal day for us. At the very least, it was a brutal day for me to watch it. Sanders' body was thrown into the pit of irrelevance, or political irrelevance, after that. But Sanders didn't stay there. Instead of Sanders kind of going on a book tour, Sanders was doing push-ups. He was doing, things to strengthen his legs from the broken back that he encountered at the hands of the people who were smearing him and battering him. And he climbed out the pit of irrelevance, one brick at a time, while his supporters stood by and chanted, "Rise, rise, rise." Sanders made the leap, and he got to the last ledge. He climbed out of the hole, and he went running to wherever he was running to, and went on a protest. Or went on a rally. I think he went on a rally after he lost the election. My point is this. You're living in a world created by Sanders. Like, Sanders, for the most part, the arguments that Sanders had made during the political process is essentially the world that you're living in. There was a fundraiser, or I guess you can say it was a think tank. It was a meeting back in 2018, and the conversation that was up essentially the people who were on the corporate left, and their problem and the thing that they were brainstorming was that the arguments that are being crafted are on the left. Like the stuff that's being talked about, the stuff that's being discussed, the people who are in the room, the things, the chatter that's about. Even if they're saying something bad about you, the fact of the matter is that they're still talking about you. This is a positive, and this is somewhat of a change. This is a fundamental shift. It doesn't seem that way. It feels kind of odd because reality always feels like it moves too slow. But this is a fundamental shift. What was it like in 2008 or 2008 and 2016, the Obama years? Medicare for all wasn't on the table. Expansion of Social Security wasn't on the table. Education and job guarantee, those things weren't on the table. Green New Deal, none of those things were on the table. It wasn't even up for discussion. And I understand Obama had a hard time dealing with an intractable Republican Party, et cetera, yes. But even the conversation didn't trend towards those directions. After the election with Sanders, despite them breaking him, at the end of the day, what they're talking about in the level of conversation is based on what he set in motion. You had other people like Ocasio, who was somewhat of a lightning rod when she won that election, and the things that she talked about became top of the line, where people were like, hey, it seems that the public is okay with taxing the rich. Who knew? Who knew? Hey, it seems like the public okay is with getting health care, with expanding Social Security and education benefits. The public is okay with these things, including Republicans. I'm not talking about the hacks in Congress. I'm talking about regular run-of-the-mill people who identify as Republicans who say, yes, I want clean air. Yes, I want my kid to be able to go to school without having $50,000 of debt on their backs. I want these things. I want these things. Whatever you want to think of Sanders from the standpoint of the capitulation on the Russia issue or the capitulation with saying vote Hillary, fair enough. But can we at least acknowledge that the world and the conversations to which we are having, especially from the standpoint of what it means to be on the left, is something he set in motion? Just saying. Bernie Sanders, the person who I was just talking about, has introduced the Social Security Expansion Act, expanding Social Security benefits. He wants to remove the cap. In fact, he's initiated this on the day that millionaires and billionaires stop paying into Social Security. He wants to remove the millionaires cap. He wants them to pay the same percentage that we pay for our income, and expand the benefits associated with Social Security. That's an amazing thing. It's a good thing. It's something that should have happened a long time ago. This video has gone too long. 5 minutes is not too bad. Let's take a look at Sanders introduced this. By the way, Cory Booker, Christian Gillibrand, Kamala Harris signed on to this. This is kind of my point. They feel they need to do this in order to inoculate themselves in the primary, because if Sanders runs, Sanders will have this associated with his name, and they wouldn't. So whether they wanted to sign on to it or not, they're somewhat forced by the political circumstance to do so. This is kind of my point when I said the argument that's being made here. This being somewhat of a presidential year, there's this question of what does it mean to be on the left? Well, here's the standard. Get in line. Let's take a look at Sanders introducing this.
Special shout out to all of you who are struggling in the trenches in the Social Security Administration. We very much appreciate what you're doing. As you know, Jeff and Peter and I and others worked hard to finally get you some money. We got you $480 million last year, the first increase for the administration of Social Security in many, many years. Because we know that in Vermont or in Oregon and all over this country, when people are walking into or calling up Social Security offices, they're not getting the kind of response that they need because of lack of staffing. So we have made a start in that area, but we're going to keep going to make sure that the people of this country know that when they have a problem with Social Security, they're going to get the prompt attention that they deserve. I also want to thank Social Security Works, Nancy and everybody else for the great work that they have done over the years. To thank the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare Max. Thank you for all that you have done. The Alliance for Retired Americans, Latinos for Secure Retirement, the Restaurant Opportunity Center, and others for being here with us this morning. This is an issue of enormous consequence to tens of millions of people. It does not get the attention that it deserves, and we're here today to change that. In my humble opinion, a great nation is not judged historically by the number of billionaires it has or by the number of nuclear weapons it has. It is judged by how it treats the weakest and most vulnerable people amongst us. And when we talk about vulnerable people, you know, it goes without saying. These are folks who are in their 80s, in their 90s, people who have worked their entire lives, people who have raised us as children, people who have gone out into the economy and worked for 40 or 50 years to grow our economy, people who have put their lives on the line to defend us in war. And what we are saying today to those senior citizens who are struggling economically to live out their last years with dignity, we will no longer turn our backs on you. Now, there is some kind of mythology circulating around this country that says that all seniors are doing well, not a problem. And what we are saying is that is absolutely untrue. In America today, 20% of senior citizens are trying to survive on an income of less than $13,500. You know, I throw out, as my colleagues here do, we throw out a lot of numbers. But this one has always startled me. I want you to think for a moment, being 85 years of age, having health care needs, having to keep your home warm in the winter. How in God's name do you do that on $13,500? You don't. And everybody up here in one way or another is involved with the Meals on Wheels program, other programs for seniors, waiting lists all over this country. Seniors desperately trying to get one good meal a day, and we don't even have the ability to provide that to all of the seniors in need. Furthermore, we're not just here talking about people who are 70, 80, or 90. We are talking about workers 55 years of age or older, half of whom have no retirement savings. All right, think about that. Think about that. In the wealthiest country in the history of the world, you got people by the millions who are 60 years of age, have worked their entire lives, scared to death about what happens to them when they retire from their jobs. They got zero in the bank, and they turn on the television. And there is Mitch McConnell or Paul Ryan or other Republicans saying, we are going to cut Social Security while we're giving tax breaks to billionaires. And we say today they got their priorities backwards. We're going to tax the billionaires and expand Social Security. Now, when you turn on the TV, our Republican friends say, well, it's too bad, but Social Security is going broke. That is a lie. Social Security has a $2.9 trillion surplus in its trust fund and can pay out every benefit owed to every eligible American for the next 15 years. And after that, the Social Security Administration estimates that there will be enough funding available to pay out 79% of the benefits to eligible Americans. We are here today to say that we can and must do much better than that. We're here to say today we are going to expand Social Security benefits, and we are going to extend the life of Social Security for our kids and our grandchildren. Well, how do we do that? All right, easy to say, well, how do we do that? And we are united here to say that we're going to do that by having the wealthiest people in.
First, yes. Like, some people ding me for my point of Tulsi Gabbard's speech, and I'm sorry to interrupt him, but God, man, there is a passion about this that's, like, there's something about a righteous cause, if that makes sense. What he's saying is true. I mean, from my own personal experience, from experiences of family members, what he's saying is absolutely true. This idea of people living off these, like, $14,000 a year, I mean, that's insane. Most people don't have any money in the bank, like, or I can't say most. A large segment of the population are retiring with zero savings. These are my family members, and it wasn't necessarily because they were ballers. Many of them, for the most part, were just using what they had, meaning they just didn't have any additional to use. They were running on already on the margins. Tulsi Gabbard giving an anti-war speech and being really placid and kind of calm and everything. There is something about an impassioned speech that dips into the pain of the other person who he's talking about. Like, it's this kind of thing of trying to share your pain, but sharing your pain in a way of the person who actually really means it and is trying to do something about it. God, I love it when he does that. I know Bob Remers called me a sucker, but fair enough. Sucker I am.
In this country, finally start paying their fair share of taxes. Say we are going to expand Social Security benefits.
One last point. You know, anytime I hear taxing billionaires, you had me at hello. You had me at hello. Billionaires shouldn't exist. Just saying.
And we are going to extend the life of Social Security for our kids and our grandchildren. Well, how do we do that? All right, easy to say. Well, how do we do that? And we are united here to say that we're going to do that by having the wealthiest people in this country finally start paying their fair share of taxes. As everybody in this room knows, because of the earnings cap on Social Security taxes, a multi-billionaire pays exactly the same amount of money into Social Security as someone who earns $132,900 a year. This is an absolutely regressive approach to taxation, and today we say that is going to end. It is time to scrap the cap. And our legislation does that by applying the Social Security payroll tax on all income, including capital gains and dividends for those who make over $250,000 a year. Under our bill, 98.2% of the American people will not pay a nickel more in taxes. And let me give you an example of the absurdity of the current Social Security payroll tax system. Donald Trump said, no, he doesn't always tell us the truth. We know that. Donald Trump claimed that he made $694 million in 2016. If that is accurate, he stopped paying Social Security payroll taxes 40 minutes into January 1st of that year. Meanwhile, the average middle-class person paid Social Security taxes for the entire year. That is absurd, and that has got to end. The other thing that our legislation does, which is also quite important, is it makes more accurate the measure for COLAs. Right now, the COLA measures the purchasing practices of all Americans. Seniors have different purchasing needs, and often they are spending more than the general public. So, we are here today, and I'm delighted to have so many members of the House and the Senate here. We are here today to stand with seniors and to say that at a time when so many are hurting, we're going to do everything we can to protect and expand Social Security. It now gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce somebody who has been in this fight for many, many years, one of the leaders in the House, Congressman Peter DeFazio.
Yeah. Yes. And just to put a fine point on it, from personal experience, my aunt worked the entirety of her life. I think she worked in the public sector, but still, she worked the entirety of her life and retires with zero. Like, that blows me away. I mean, ultimately, if there's any kind of agreement between, you can say, workers versus the plutocratic class, is that, you know, the people who do work, I'm saying this in a poor way. All I'm saying is the idea that the people work their entire life, and that labor is necessary to make our society run. Meaning, you can't necessarily have the society that you have without the people doing the labor in order for you to have that society. It's just kind of one of those things that's sacrosanct. If that's true, then there needs to be an agreement that if you do that, then you never leave with zero, with zilch. Meaning, whether that's expansion of Social Security, whatever that is, you should not leave a process where you're stuck with poverty at the end, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your society doesn't necessarily provide for you when you get older. I find that to be amazing. Even the cap on Social Security, that regressive cap that essentially limits the amount of money that people can contribute. So you contribute a larger portion of your income as opposed to somebody else with a larger income. Yeah, get rid of it. I'm putting more information about the bill here, but what Sanders said is, for all intents and purposes, what the bill is. It's expanding benefits. It's also expanding benefits for people who are younger, which is also an amazing thing. Yeah, fucking A. Sanders. Fucking A. Sanders. I love it. Marshall Villager. Interesting, you didn't say that we've paid for it by ending the military-industrial complex. Come on. Are you gonna ding him on this too? What he's doing here is God's work. Essentially, it's like, yeah, that's good and all, but I mean, he's not giving me a unicorn. Okay, I don't mean to use the unicorn trope, but you get my point. No, he's not saying we're going to do it by ending the military complex. He's doing it within the context of the thing that he's talking about. In that case, the most direct route to doing it is just getting rid of the cap. Just saying. All right, I'll end this here. This one, 20 minutes is not too bad. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. My wife and I are going to have a patron appreciation episode on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. People tend to like it when she's with me on those, so she will be with me on that. Actually, for the foreseeable future, she tends to like it, and it's fun. So I'm going to go with it. Thanks all. Have a good one.